I'm actually so excited to hear them and share what they did and their experience of being in the writer's room at the Betsy. This group, as you know, the Escribe Aquí Festival was focusing this year on intersectionality, the experience of being othered. And from the very beginning, this is a cohort of women, and that's an other in and of itself. We're still battling issues of equality and fairness with everything from healthcare to work initiatives. So that was the first one. But other than that, this was such a diverse group of women, such a powerful mix. We have everything from Caribbean writers to Russian writers, Jewish writers, disabled writers, just amazing, amazing talent that we're going to get to here tonight. Another thing I found, though, in talking to each one of them was this theme, this cohesiveness, not just about our obsessions, which seem to mirror one another's in terms of our search for home and place, our search for identity in a space in a world that often doesn't recognize difference and otherness. But I also found the common thread was the theme of matriarchal lineage, whether we were naming our ancestors, talking about our grandmothers, our children, our experience as mothers, our experience as becoming mothers to our mothers. One thing was very clear to me is that our women folk figure very prominently in our work and our memories and our lives. And in fact, this theme of mothering, of motherhood, connects to our dedication for tonight's event, is dedicated to Austin C. Prescott, who is the son of Catherine Esposito Prescott, who was slated to be one of our fellows. But unfortunately, Austin passed away in August of DIPG, a rare and aggressive brain tumor that primarily affects children and young adults. So I wanted to read a poem that Catherine wrote, dedicated to Austin years before. It's in her book, Accidental Garden. And it was also highlighted in an initiative that came out of the writer's room in partnership with the New Tropic, where writers who had stayed there provided a work having to do with either their experience at the Betsy or South Beach or Miami. And the serendipity of the poem is that it ran in August. So I'm going to tonight dedicate the poem to Austin's memory and to his mother, Catherine Esposito Prescott, who is with us tonight in spirit. Obad, South Beach. The beach carries scattered remains of the night, a bed sheet, a beach blanket etched in sand. The shore quivers with discarded cigarette butts, ash of weed, ash of tobacco, a soup of bottles, mostly plastic, some glass, water, beer, champagne, more than one condom, crumpled, disheveled, used or not. I walk lifting each item as artifact. I struggle to shelve judgment and my instinct to turn each into myth. Orbs of sunlight reveal chicken bones, fish skeletons, the chipped half shell of a mussel, one ghost crab leg. We combed the beach one year, throwing larger refuse into large trash bags, then sifting through sand for hidden debris the way we knew how to as mothers, grain by grain, as we'd parted our children's hair many times that year, lifting knits and eggs from soft threads, from hair which had not yet known gel and dye. That day, my son found a lucky seed from Cuba via Africa, one that holds the evil eye at bay, all who would cause him harm, and a rosary made of brown crystals, each bead intact, with a Christ, sullen, surrendered, spinning. The ocean washes up more than memory. What is held by sand travels into the ocean's body and returns not as waste, not as sacrament. I would not let him throw them out. How could I? He was too young to know faith. He who had never needed to pray. Thank you. Our first reader is Veronica Corpus, a poet of the Mad Woman in the Attic workshop of Carlow University, and one of 13 women of color who comprise the #NotWhite collective based in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. She has performed and exhibited her artwork at the Poetry Project at St. Mark's Church in New York, Boulder Museum of Contemporary Art, Buen Vivir Gallery in Buffalo, and most recently this fall at the McDonough Museum of Youngstown State University. Through poetry and mixed media, she explores themes of loss and grief and cultural identity in her work. Without any further ado, we have Veronica. Welcome. I cannot wait to hear your work.
Thank you, Caridad, and good evening. My name is Veronica Gloria Navarro Corpus. I'm a Filipino-American poet and interdisciplinary artist with shoulder-length wavy black hair. I'm wearing gold hoop earrings and a green top, and I'm seated in front of a white wall with 4 photographs behind me, and they are photographs of coconuts. I am honored to be here tonight and to be sharing this incredible platform with such esteemed poets, Alexis, Alina, Jen, Juliet, and Casey. I'm just so excited to hear your work and to hopefully connect with you afterwards and bring you to Pittsburgh. Thank you, Caridad, Jean, and the good folks at Escribe Aquí for hosting us tonight and for your partnership with the Betsy Hotel. I am so deeply grateful to Deborah Briggs and Jonathan Plutzik and the Plutzik family for your hospitality, extraordinary generosity, for the gifts of time and space to create, to rest and heal, to nourish and be nourished, and nourish the poetic mind and spirit and body. So thank you so much for that. It was a joy to talk to so many wonderful people at the Betsy, staff members, the guests. I'm working on those poems, and I hope to have them soon. But thank you to everyone for that incredible experience. And a very, very special thank you to Rosie Gordon-Wallace and the Diaspora Vibe Cultural Arts Incubator for believing in me and so many artists. Over 26 years, you've mentored and guided and loved us into our poetic and artistic selves. And I thank you for your love and commitment to the arts. And of course, thank you to all of you here tonight, including many friends from across the country, for your presence and support in this time together. In celebration of the life of Austin, I'm dedicating this first few poems to him. They are from a collection called The Widow's Calendar, and it's about my late husband, Michael Rumkowski, and his battle with brain cancer. And many of the poems are about his illness, and then also about our 18-month-old son, Nico, who's now 15. And from what I've learned about Austin, I believe he shared a love of music and a love of friends and family with Mike. And in that spirit, I share these 3 poems with you. When he looks at you as he sits upright in a pink respiratory chair, strapped with buckles you find on an airplane. He holds his head up, stares straight at you. You read his lips, see the arch of his eyebrows rise, watch his lips forming a large O, the O closing upon itself the way a fish bubbles and puckers each breath. His lips puff. Hope. In his sister's handwriting for Tia. His sister's silhouette meets his in the late afternoon slant of light. She faces him as he lays motionless in bed, unable to speak. He dictates something. She watches his face, reads his lips as he taps each letter, one at a time with the blink of his eye. She echoes and writes, echoes and writes, a spiral notebook on the bed. I hear 2 lines and my heart breaks. I run into the storage closet that has become our makeshift family office, and I sit among the equipment manuals and boxes of medical supplies, blue pads and surgical gowns, a red Christmas tin of caramel popcorn. We have stuffed 5 chairs where we sit so close our knees almost touch. In this closet, we grieve. Later, I will find the notebook and read this love letter to his son. I will hold your hand when you go to the park. I can hear you when you talk to me. I love playing music with you and for you. And when you play, I will be playing with you. I wish for you to grow up to be a happy, healthy man. And this last poem from the sequence is called When I Try to Make a Map of Sorrow. I thought I could describe a state, make a map of sorrow. Sorrow, however, turns out to be not a state, but a process. C.S. Lewis, A Grief Observed. When I try to make a map of sorrow, I think impossible. The state of sorrow is borderless, bigger than Rhode Island, maybe as large as Texas, depending on the day or weather, Alaskan in its wilderness. Sorrow, the widower writes, needs not a map, but a history. The road can continue forever, I protest, stretching along the highways, detailing every minuscule memory. History is never history, I hear him say. Then I remember the Milwaukee airport, the TSA security area beyond the X-rays and metal detectors. A sign above me says, recombobulation area. I have lingered here long enough, haven't I? Shall I gather up my things, my papers, so to speak? The widower speaks directly to the widow and me. There is something new to be chronicled every day. It is time now to cross over into a new country. And the last kind of 3 poems I'm going to read are from a new body of work that explores and reflects upon my childhood growing up in the predominantly white suburbs of Pittsburgh. And at this point, I would like to acknowledge that with great reverence, the stewardship of the Lenni and Lenape and Shawnee and Haudenosaunee, the 6 nations that are Mohawk, Oneida, Onondaga, Seneca, Cayuga, and Tuscarora for tending to these lands. They are present in the spirit of Pittsburgh and are alive and living and well. And I honor them with sharing the culture that my parents brought to Pittsburgh from the Philippines in the late 60s. And growing up, I learned a lot of the culture through Philippine folk dance, studying and rehearsing in very weird and strange locations like the Monroeville Mall or hallways in universities, and just dancing in literally in the streets of Pittsburgh, in the convention center, in malls. And often I felt embarrassed growing up, but ironically, or in the same kind of movement, I was also very proud and felt most alive when I was dancing and performing. And so these poems are about the individual dances that I learned growing up. This first one is called Itik, a dance of baby ducklings. I am dressed in yellow and white gingham, a kerchief wrapped around my head, little tufts of yellow. I am a baby bird, a duckling, an ugly duckling with buck teeth, brown face gleaming with blue eyeshadow, red lipstick smeared across my otter teeth, my big otter grin, white ankle socks, white lace, little white leather sandals. As I open, flap, flap, open, flap, flap, my elbows into wings and heel, tippy toe, all the way across the stage. Tinikling. The tickling bird steps and steps, the traps you set in wetlands catch the bird the way you catch a fish. Snap, snap, bamboo talons trap and snap the bird inside the net. I dance like a bird, tiptoeing through bamboo lances, smack, trap, feet, fleeting, snap, jump, twist, turn the other way, back, forth, my arms flap, forward, back, I leap, crisscross, I am a bird, the barred rail, swift-footed until I fly. And this last poem is called Binasuan. I learn to dance the Binasuan by balancing a candle on my head, a candle in each palm. I am an octopus of light, turning my arms in helical spirals. I am the Monongahela monster lit up with neon green light, spinning its arms in the darkness of a summer night at Kennywood Amusement Park. This is a Pittsburgh poem. This is a Filipino poem. How I bobble the light held inside a glass votive. I can bend down and onto my knees. I can even lower my body down to the ground in supplication, supine, sinuous, rolling pin along the carpet, rise back up to my knees until I am standing again. And then I spin and spin and spin, arms outstretched, pivoting on the ball of my foot. I spin and spin and spin until I catch all the light in one hand. Thank you.
Wow, beautiful. Thank you so much, Veronica. Love that. I could feel that spin. So our next reader hails from Boston, and she's wicked smart. She's probably gonna get mad at me for saying that, but she is. Alexis Ivy. You know, there were all these serendipities happening with this group of women that were seemingly completely had nothing to do with each other, but in a strange way, they were all connected. That's the beauty of women and of women poets to the max, right? So with Alexis, she told me a story, how her story with Miami started years ago. And then she came back to Miami Beach to bookend that story. And I loved being a part of that, of being able to be a part of that full circle. So please help me welcome Alexis Ivy, a 2018 recipient of the Massachusetts Cultural Council Fellowship in Poetry. She is the author of Romance with Small-Time Crooks, Blaze Vox Books, 2013, and Taking the Homeless Census. Saturnalia, I can never say that. Saturnalia Books 2020, which won the 2018 Editor's Prize. She is co-editor of Essential Voices, a COVID-19 anthology, West Virginia University Press 2023. She lives in her hometown, Boston, working as an advocate for the homeless and teaching in the Poem Works community. Please help me welcome Alexis Ivy.
Thank you, Caridad, and to the Betsy for sharing your space with me. So I'm going to be reading poems of otherness tonight, specifically my otherness. When I was putting the reading together, I had noticed I had many poems about witnessing others' otherness, so I wanted to share with you my own tonight. So I'm going to begin reading poems from my first collection, Romance with Small-Time Crooks. The first poem is called I Have My Reasons. I hate boys. Hate how if I give one a flower, he'll take it and pick a flower for another girl when he could have held mine longer. I used to eat cereal I didn't like, boxes of it, and watch soap operas one after the other. I also want to talk about the worst thing anyone ever said about me, worse than anything my brother said because it wasn't said by my brother. Emma Rawls didn't say it to my face. Someone told me. She said it and I wouldn't look in the window to see how I was looking. She said that I looked like I was hit in the face with a baseball. I thought she meant I had black eyes that wouldn't go away, a fat lip. Thought she meant I slouched myself, face down to the ground, like my body was a pile instead of a person. Isn't everybody fruit on the way to rotten? I started showering twice a day. I liked the smell of soap and sleeping with the storm windows open and my hair damp. I wear armpit hair instead of makeup. I have my reasons. The next poem I'm going to read is in the form of a sonnet. Hi, my name's Alexis, and I'm an addict. And the more rain pours, the more I remember I wasn't made for simple. Never learned anything simple. I wanted unadored, left out, missed out, to be unsayable, a speech impediment. I love trouble, know only trouble, licking the soles of any friend's shoes, bark up the wrong lumber, the valid bullshit, the going nowheres, the too many men, the always till forevers, the habitually bad beats. A dance with death to have a revelation, to get back to fair shake, to water and mend. I had to quit quitting on me to find salvation. Bless being careful, bless being mine again, beautiful for the first, last time. I'm going to move to my next collection, Taking the Homeless Census. I'm kind of one of those formalist poets, so this is in the form of a sestina. A recurring dream I had. I was left at the bottom of the hill. It was kindergarten, and so we had taken a field trip. Kindergarten. There's no number to that grade. I was left by Miss Anderson. Her long blonde hair forgot me. She always wanted the best for me. Alone is what's best for me, as always, again. The next night, everyone else got up the hill. Again, I'm left at the bottom of the hill. I never yelled up, never spoke up the next day about being alone all night, though night never happened. The next trip to the bottom of the hill, I didn't ask why they left me. No one noticed I had been left. In the dream, I kept being left. Day after day, the dream of it happening again, my parents never looking for me. One Tuesday night in the third grade, I waited down the hill for them to come and get me. They couldn't even make the trip, thought they would want me home. I got used to feeling alone, like in real life, that tiny hospital bed at Children's, me alone and 2 weeks old, every night for a month, left without a goodnight song, tubes hanging from me, no trip home, no being held or looked at by my mother's face. My father again mourned me like I'm dead and buried at the bottom of the hill. A part of me must have died there in my parents' mind. The part of me I still don't know. The me who is forgotten, ignored, looked over, alone. The me who couldn't make it. The me who couldn't climb a hill. Couldn't be like Jill of Jack and Jill. I know Jill would have never left Jack in that nursery rhyme. I'd sing it again, try to whistle it, to fetch a pail of water. What a trip and fall Jack took. Maybe he would trip down my hill someday, be near me. But he never did, so it's me again, only me, feeling so truly alone that by the 200th time I dreamt it, I felt I was meant to be left, and I stayed with that feeling at the bottom of the hill. I never flew in that dream, tripped a lot, rocks, dirt, left the hill dream after me dreaming the hill for years. Years waking alone, years again thinking. Doesn't everyone's life come tumbling after? Map of Boston, 2013. From my fire escape, a blue balloon has strayed from its party, caught on a tree. It's out of breath, tired of the bullying wind. From up here, I can make out the other side of the playground, and a dandelion in the alley grows out of a crack. I didn't grow up well-mannered, no linen napkins on my lap, but on paper plates on Center Street, one of childhood's main drags. I've moved out of my folks' house where the one leaf in my salad was iceberg, learned to lose my mother's Boston accent, learned how dirty half-melted snow can get. I could show you certain corners of Mattapan, clothesline keep high-rises from falling. Fights break out, windows stay broken, hate crimes caked in paint on storefronts. Even I was dangerous once, buying late summer smack, overheating the car on Blue Hill Ave. These days, it's murder on Boylston Street. It's pressure cookers tearing the marathon apart, blowing legs loose like bricks in the blizzard of '96. The Commonwealth is constantly in revision. Even I edit myself, take out every never, each always. I used to think explosions near the finish line meant victory. My last poem's from my latest manuscript that I'm trying to find a home for. 5 attempts to record my out-of-office message at the shelter. 1. Sorry I cannot take your call right now. If you need immediate assistance, contact someone essential. I am essential, but unavailable. I am not boots on the ground enough to help you. 2. I'm not here right now. If you could see me, you'd think I look so young, so healthy, but my cardiologist told me otherwise. 3. My heart is not as good as the Tin Man's heart in The Wizard of Oz. At least his gift was immaculate and mechanically perfect. I'm more of a wreck when I hear the train to the workplace I can't go to anymore. 4. I feel like I am not a fighter for the first time. Am I a hider? I'm not who I thought, so leave a message after the tone. 5. After the beep, please tell me everything. Like you, I wear my damaged heart on my sleeve. Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Wow, that was amazing. The sestina, for those of you who aren't familiar with the sestina, it's a very difficult form, and to make it not sound repetitive is quite the task, and you did it beautifully. Thank you, Alexis. Our next reader, before I read her formal bio, I will give her a shout out as my dear friend and my sister, Jen Karetnik, one of the founders, along with Catherine Esposito Prescott, of Swim, of which I am an associate editor, and so lucky that I get to do this creative work with them. And when Catherine could not step into her residency, Jen came and took her place. And that's what we do. That's what a sisterhood is. We step in, we step up, we step for each other. So I will read her formal bio now, but just wanted to give her a special shout out. Thank you for coming and for doing such great work, because she probably wrote 52 poems while she was there for 3 days. She's incredibly prolific and incredibly talented. With no further ado, Jen Karetnik, the winner of the 2022 Cider Press Review Book Award for Inheritance with a High Error Rate, January 2024, selected by Lauren Camp. Jen Karetnik is the author of 10 additional poetry collections, including the chapbook What Forges Us Steel, the Judge Judy Poems, Alternating Current Press, July 2024. Her work has won the Tiferet Writing Contest for Poetry, Split Rock Review Chapbook Competition, Hart Crane Memorial Prize, and Anna Davidson Rosenberg Prize, among other honors, and received fellowships from the Vermont Studio Center, Wild Acres Retreat, Mother's Milk Residency, Artist in Residence in the Everglades, and elsewhere. See, I was in line. The co-founder and managing editor of Swim Every Day, she has forthcoming work in Atlanta Review, Bellevue Literary Review, Cimarron Review, Cold Mountain Review, Grist, Harper Palette, Plume, Shenandoah, South Dakota Review, and the Worcester Review, among other venues. See jkaretnik.com or visit her Instagram at Jen Karetnik or on Twitter /X at Kvetchnik. Jen, do your thing, girl. I know you got a poem or two.
Thank you, Carrie, my friend. It's really funny when I was speaking with Deb at the very end when I came in and I said, Carrie and I are here and we're gonna talk to you. She's like, who's Carrie? And she's like, oh, Carrie Dad. I'm like, yes, it's Carrie though. It's Carrie to her friends,
Carrie.
of course. I know I've known her for Carrie is like, I don't know, 20 years. But I do want to say a big thank you to Deb and to Jonathan and to Jean and to everybody involved, all the partners and books and collaborative, capital A, and all of the fellows who came. And it's just such an incredible festival, and to have gone on for 9 years is just amazing. Swim that we founded with the Betsy's help, and honestly, we would not be here without the Betsy, is now in its 8th year. So to think that we're still here and doing our thing and hosting residencies and readings and publishing, our publishing is now in its 7th year. But it's all because of the Betsy, and it's all because of their support. And we always know that. So a great big thank you to all of the partners and the Betsy. I'm going to read 5 poems. 3 of the poems are from my forthcoming book. A lot of it is about being othered as a middle-aged Jewish woman who lives in Miami and feels that pressure to keep up, but is still somewhat invisible. You just get more invisible as you get older. I think we all see that happening. But it's also a lot about climate change and a lot about moving. We moved from our mango grove that we had for 20 years we downsized, and it was really difficult on me to leave that place. And I didn't want to, but I couldn't keep up with it anymore. I'm going to spare you the mango poems though, but there are a lot of them in there. And then at the end, I'm going to read 2 elegies, one for my brother and one for Austin. I commiserate with the pygmy octopus found in the Miami Beach parking garage. First time, I get it. In this place, it's inevitable to cling to cement like forgotten spaghetti in the bottom of the pot. Bottom dwellers, holders of the smallest hopes, we have so much in common. Always, it's a rude awakening to find yourself flush on the floor under the neon glare of the super beaver moon, the surging sea, a near distance, that uterine shed of toxic algae, the sick room stink sweeping in long before the scarlet feathered dawn, pushing you into a place you never thought you'd go. All 3 of your hearts were born to know what dying is, but this is different. Only air beats through your gills to replace their copper charges. Canary in the coal mine of climate change, marine biologists call you. Expect more sea creatures in dry spaces. Twitter sends recipes, sarcasm. This is from the city that brought the world a shark on the metro rail. Is it running for mayor? Harbinger or hoax, but alive when security scoops you into a bucket of salt water and deposits you home. The question is not, how long can you survive out of the ocean, but why should we have to see your blood to know how much bluer it runs? My hairstylist is a man who loves the shape of a woman's skull. Its petite cliffs and canyons that he hikes with his agile fingers, the dips and curves in the road of a scalp that he reads like a triptych. Otherwise indifferent, his Gucci model face set as if for a permanent advertisement, he converses only with the Italian men whose hair he trims in between foiling and painting away my personality, turning me as platinum and beach wave as every other woman in Miami. He envisions me even less visibly than I view myself, I think, until we go to the sink and I lean back in the chair while he rocks and cradles my head in his palms, the size of saucers, supporting my occipital bone like a lizard caught to take outside, turning me this way and that under the faucet, exploring the only part of my aging body that interests him, my drenched and gleaming skull, showing off its faulty crevices and divots like a landscape or an archaeological excavation, ancient and revelatory, perpetually in danger of collapse. And this is the final poem in the manuscript. It has the name of the blessing of a home in Hebrew, which is Birkat Habayit. And it starts with a little fragment, and then it's the rest of it's a villanelle. Birkat Habayit, a woman is a bird when, wood under feet, dressed in flower parts, she surveys her private garden, ragtag, everything in it equal to her heart. Downsize, they tell her, it's only a start. Learn to bolster what's beginning to sag. Wood under feet, dressed in flower parts, a woman is a thorn, poisonous dart. Planes fly away from the kite of her back, everything in them equal to her heart. Convertibles accordion, roofs hard. Oh, to feel again the pain of the egg. Wood under feet, dressed in flower parts, a woman goes rogue, winging wide, apart, her flock caught in a current of jet lag, everything in it equal to her heart. One eye doll wide, one squinting and alert, she talons her home like a prized handbag, wood under feet, dressed in flower parts, everything in it equal to her heart. This next poem is a form I invented. It's called a divine flow, and it's kind of a cross between a Zuihitsu and a Fibonacci sequence. And I did write it about my brother after swearing I was not going to write any more poems about my brother, who died without speaking to me for 2 years. So in terms of being othered, I was othered by my brother. Othered by my brother. It even rhymes. And it's taken me a long time to get over it, because I never stopped speaking to him. I just wouldn't get an answer. So, of course, as soon as you say you're not going to write about something, you write about something. And there you go. You get this poem. And of course, it's right about this time of year. So this is called For Turtles Hatching Around the High Holidays. Carbuncling their way to the top, the loggerback turtle hatchlings oyster away from each other, flippers, thumbing eyes, clumsy and inaccurate as trowels. They take days to undig the grainy avalanche of incubation. A viewmaster of dreams delivers my brother. He introduces me to his girlfriend, which is only fair since his widow is dating. Away from the melt of neon, the hatchlings will rise at night like coffins in a flood. I light candles for the dead, appling the salt air. Hundreds will asterisk the sand, the Little Dipper, Pleiades, B-type, stars, star. Waves wave fledglings out to sea. Whose sorrow is this? Constellated sand erases. I excavate oceans of grief sleep with mask and tube. One set of tracks drags toward the dunes, intersects a prance of paw prints, perhaps bobcat. I hatch sentences in my dreams to lurch toward the aquatic interstices and feed on hydrozoans, sargassum, jellyfish. When I wake, words are already unscripting. Only 1 in 1,000 will survive. And this is a poem I finished at the Betsy. Still not sure that it's quite finished yet, but this is for Austin Clyde Prescott. And a big, big heart to Catherine, whose residency I will take anytime at the Betsy, because we've all been there, right? It's a hardship. Just kidding. This is for her and for Austin. It was a very difficult year to go through. And I wouldn't wish this on any mother. I wouldn't wish this on anyone. I know that Carrie's going to put the link in the chat if she hasn't already, but if you can find it in your heart to donate to find a cure, please do. This is called Too Brief Again this August light. But the uncommon heat will not break. Rain sizzles the roof tiles as if the heavens make breakfast for gods who are the furthest thing from benevolent, belching discontent. The sky, a cafecito, and no redolence rises from the kitchens of households blessed enough to breach each morning's surface in concert. In chamber, cups grow concrete. The dogs bury themselves under the sturdiest of sofas. All summer, we have been learning about loss, sensation, movement, how an eye can refuse to close. A smile freezes, halves, bit by bit, the inability to swallow, the gullet, and open coffin. That final week off the coast of Key Largo, where it's so womb warm that the coral bleaches into skeletal fingers. Only 60 miles from where Lolita is also dying in her saline container. A group of 5 killer whales ruptures the skin of the ocean, alerting the nearby fishermen who don snorkel gear and jump in to receive them, wondering as they swim toward the vessel, back, forward and back, those muscular, inquisitive bodies that hurl themselves with such joy 15 feet in the air. In the wild, marine biologists say orcas are no danger to humans. The academics of whales, they hunt in packs, bear down on boats out of curiosity, slap seals with their tails like soccer balls. By cruel accident in play, slay porpoises they encircle. But they too own the language of fear and grief and memory. Born to singular paths, each pod gulps only the fish their forebears ingested, travel their ancestors' routes, like this family whose sojourn in this foreign habitat, a fleeting distraction for those who keep vigil, is sent by a message coded into their brains, who must wait for the rest of it to be actuated before they can make the essential turn for recall. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jen. Those were absolutely beautiful. Thank you. And I did drop that information in the chat. I'll do so again. So I realized that we have, all of us are East Coast poets, and right now my Northeastern friends are maybe going to be affected by a hurricane. Typically it would be the other way around, right? So very interesting. And we have another Pennsylvania poet. Alita Pliskova is a poet, editor, and Moscow-born immigrant turned proud Philadelphian. Her first full-length poetry collection, Tosca, is newly out from Deep Vellum. She co-edits Bedfellows magazine and is a 2020 and 2022 Leeway Foundation grant awardee, as well as the author of the chapbook, What Urge Will Save Us? Spooky Girlfriend Press 2017. Her writing has appeared in American Poetry Review, Swamp Pink, Peach Mag, The Tiny, and elsewhere. Help me welcome Alina.
Hi, everyone. I am so honored to be here. Thank you so much to the Betsy and Escribe Aquí, and especially to Caridad for just really, when we met, indulging me, just like dumping all of my imposter syndrome and like class rage and like everything else. It was just like, I don't even have words for how much that experience meant to me, just to be able to go somewhere and rest and not have to like, you know, the capitalist notion of always having to like work on something or like prove your worth and all of this, when really like a huge privilege to me is just the ability to like opt out of the grind for a little bit. And I know the poems will come later. So it's my way of saying I did not write during the residency. I slept a lot. I slept so much that my Russian Jewish mother called the hotel and asked them to check on me because she thought I had vanished. So that's how well rested I was. But I do have poems in Tosca or Tosca, if you like, that speak to the theme of otherness that I thought I would share. And also just to explain the title a bit, Tosca is a Russian word that's kind of seen as like an untranslatable word that refers to the feeling of carrying something heavy around, like a spiritual weight or some kind of sense of heaviness that you can't attribute to one specific source or cause. So in the book, there's a lot of things that cause the feeling, mainly the late capitalist hellscape that we live in, but certainly other things. So I will start with a poem that's dedicated to my friend Gala Mukamalova, who is a fellow queer post-Soviet poet. It's called Our People Don't Believe in Tears. I pull the death card and you go, know what this means? Not unkindly. Something crucial about living keeps grazing me by inches. No grip on my future. As we say, no что? As we say other times, and so what? Our people toast relentlessly to health, don't fall for anyone's easy grin. We learn guarded early. In certain company, I'm cowed. I hollow out for ease of relations. My parents never knew Marina left Sofia until they heard it on the radio, decades after the poet's death. Things were complicated then, they said. You couldn't just live as yourself. At Reese with you, tits out and facing heavenward, I regard my debts to our legion. In every direction, bodies gleam, however they present. To be legible is a release. Someone's hair dye trails fuchsia wake across the water. Someone chugs rum on the sandbar. Someone dares leather getup in rippling heat. Everyone believes in disco. Bliss takes a day-sized bite. We're no longer there or then, and yet Elena Grigorieva will be murdered in St. Pete tomorrow for living as herself and loudly. Tomorrow we will make blины for my babushka's recipe and lament over our split culture. Jokes cut with our first tongue, the one that tends toward withholding. My parents never knew I loved. Occasionally, my mother asks if therapy is working. Our people prefer their tea and humor darker. Where were you when you first realized how many more of us exist? I was here, waiting dimly for my undoing. I feel very emotionally rattled because all of these poets are so brilliant, and I feel like I just want to sit and like process your work and not read it all. So it's such a joy to be here with all of you and hear your work, truly. There's a lot of poems in here that touch on my Russianness, which has felt more complicated since the war started, and I turned in the manuscript prior to that. So I guess the next book will reckon with that. But in the meantime, this poem is called Hard People. Watching old Soviet animations as a sort of secondhand nostalgia, our languages meld into a makeshift one with cartoonish accent, not the one our parents have, which we can't actually imitate, or the ones we shift to when we get drink slurry or pissed off, closer to the one we hear people put on and immediately know they aren't one of us. Someone on a forum asks, why are Russians such hard people? One response, when you have to do with almost no resources for generations, you develop mentality of philosophers. When you are trained for generations that nothing is yours, you don't mind to share. It's better than being made to give it, sometimes with fingers still attached. You tell me how your father, a professor in Moscow, slept in parks and train stations, having been denied housing. I tell you how my dedushka, a self-taught master tailor, refused to work for the Bolshoi until he could hire other Jews. A real mensch, the rabbi said at his funeral. In those years, I was told, anyone looking for a synagogue knew to ask for directions to a particular theater with a rotating code name. Knocking on wood isn't enough to cast off generational trauma. So we were taught to do it thrice, then spit over the left shoulder, the devil's side. When I was very small, they tried getting me to write in Cyrillic with my right hand, but it didn't take. Our names are the ones our families changed them to be when we arrived. And what are we? I'm a Hebrew school dropout. At your bat mitzvah, the Torah reading was transliterated into English. We call ourselves culturally Jewish, Ruskis with an asterisk. Still, in our mother tongue, we say nashe, ours, to indicate one of us. This is for all the women. Eris. Do I look alive enough out there? Crushed velvet, signaling my intent to be devoured, undone, etc. Whatever else shows veritable effort. I want useless splendor, to be as carried off with rapture as the woman who kissed a Twombly hanging in a gallery later said, "It was a gesture of love. I did not think it out carefully." True story. I want the class wars to start, but everyone's so tired. All these neologisms for disruption and innovation, and still not a soul I know confuses precarity with play. Eros, I've looked for you all over. Our totalitarian state glitched out my libido, and I give over whole afternoons to huffing lavender, hitting up ghoulish senators, browser history littered with herbal elixirs, and all the things I should know how to do by now. All around me, women grip the buoys of their autonomy to stay afloat until personhood washes up on the shores of no nation. I stockpile intimacies almost too ephemeral to clock. Strangers act so kind whenever I wear this ridiculous pom-pom hat, and old friends use my name's diminutive, and some lovers leave a glass of lemon water by the bed, my body carved with red filigree. Desire doesn't aspire to anything other than itself. I don't miss so-and-so, just being seen in that way, just having an unholy place to rest, set all this down. And maybe some levity. This is a poem I wrote about being a bisexual woman on the apps. I don't know if anyone can relate, but it's a mess. You're either like there to spice up someone else's vanilla sex life, or like, I don't know, not really seen as a person who is like capable of a full relationship because you're greedy. So that's the place that this poem is coming from. Impervious third. On the more explicit app, flexible couples seek a playful and adventurous third. And there's a winky emoji. In a long enough lull, a slanted logic starts to resurface. Rapport is nearly chemistry. Typecast is close to a type. Fringe normativity isn't always predictable. So on, before I recall the elusive to-dos. Hold fast to radiance, enough with the bit parts. Get in way over your head. Shrugs are hardly anyone's erotics. It's just the signal cuts out when I shift from pleasure vessel to bait, flint, curio, companion animal, other. When an end to longing is sensed, what becomes of want's largesse? As a kid, I bit the inside of my cheeks until the cartilage toughened, or got on a bike and came back bloodied, asphalt flecked, having punctured the membrane between self and out there, having dinged up my subjectivity good. I grew into diversions, went further afield, wore shock absorbers nearly to the bone, and sometimes I nearly made out the gossamer link from heart to cunt to sanctum. In the data dump of past encounters, thousands come up with a commonality, a body semaphore motioning toward obliteration, or at least a well-appointed waiting room. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Alexis. And see, you did have poems to read. See, nothing to worry about. Our next poet is in Miami with Jen and I, which is exciting. And I had a great time talking to her about our grandmothers. And I love the story of her name, how her grandmother insisted on naming her Juliet for Romeo. So I'll never forget that. And I'll never forget you. So Juliet Romeo is a Trinidad-born filmmaker who now resides in South Florida, is renowned for her award-winning work. Drawing from her personal journey as a Caribbean woman of color with a disability, Juliet crafts captivating narratives and documentaries that have a positive impact on people's lives. Additionally, she founded the Unstoppable program at Slam Dance Film Festival, dedicated to showcasing and celebrating the creative and inspiring stories of the disabled community. Through her initiatives, Juliet provides opportunities and accessibility for disabled filmmakers. Her films have been showcased across Florida through platforms such as PBS, Shudder, and various local festivals and art exhibits. Welcome, Juliet.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Caridad. And thank you to Escribe Aquí, the Betsy Hotel. This past month has just been a whirlwind experience for me to, it was my first writer's residency, which was something that I had been praying for. And as Caridad also mentioned, my grandmother, this is what I will be writing. I wrote a poem about her during the residency, and I just realized how much of an impact she has had on me. It is, as Caridad mentioned, very serendipitous that this is happening in September. September is Sickle Cell Awareness Month. I am a sickle cell warrior and advocate, and this time last year, you know, we lost my wonderful grandmother in September, but I have held on to her memories and the lessons that she has taught me. And we spoke a lot about her experience in traveling to America. And I have written about that and written a poem, and that is what I'll be reading tonight. The first is a reading. I didn't even title it. It's really just the story that my grandmother has told me, and I'm repeating that. It was a warm day. The island ocean breeze could be felt inland. I stood in front of my 4 children, Jennifer, Terrence, Keith, and Judy. Their heights are like a staircase from tallest to shortest. The latter, my baby girl, was crying while my 2 boys sniffled. They tried to hold it together, and they've always tried to be brave for me. My oldest daughter put on a brave face for the other 3. I gripped my small suitcase, but my feet couldn't move. Gemma, come now, they're ready. My friend Nancy called in a familiar Caribbean accent, one that I knew I wouldn't hear often where I was going. Nancy stood on the tarmac in front of a white plane. I watched as Nancy and the pilot spoke. She gave him a thick envelope, all the money I had. There was no turning back. I turned to my children. Listen to your Auntie Patsy. Patsy was my sister, the only one that I had, the only person I could trust. She too had 4 children, but I understood that they would come first, and I wondered what would happen to mine. And Jenny, you set a good example as you are the oldest. Jenny nodded and held me tight. I wanted to hug her back, but I couldn't move. I knew I never would get on that plane if I had hugged her back. I had to go, for her most of all. Staring out the window, my eyes filled with water. The children were just a blur through the tears, but I knew every trace of their faces. I'm leaving my fort to make a better life in America. I'm doing this for them. I kept reminding myself. This plane was taking me to a land I knew nothing about, people that I knew nothing of. The turbulence frightened me. I wondered if I would make it at all. We landed in New York. Nancy set me up with a job cleaning the home of a Jewish doctor. Nancy's wanting to wear warm clothing could have never prepared me for the freezing cold weather that hit me once the plane doors opened. I tucked my head down and braced for the assault of the below zero winds and snow-covered ground. I wanted to return to the warmth of my island and the warmth of my children's arms. They needed me. I needed them. My teeth chattered. I am doing this for them. And the next one is a poem that I wrote. This I actually wrote during my stay at the hotel. It is titled Unfamiliar Ground. In a place where the Caribbean kissed the shore, beyond the steel pans beat Trinidad's core, nestled Tobago and embrace so sweet, lived tales of sacrifice, dreams incomplete. My grandmother, with a spirit fierce and wild, knew of my pain. I was her suffering child. Within my veins, a battle silent but brave and grave. She sought a land, my life to save. Her gaze, deeper than pitch lakes vast, held stories of futures tied to the past. Trade in Trini's sun, its comforting heat, for foreign lands, snow beneath her feet. The rhythm of soca, the pulse of the sand, swapped for city noise, a distant land. Yet she bore within our island song as she walked a path, rugged and long. For me, she left behind the coral's glow, chose city lights in cold winters through. Every painful step, every tear she'd hide was for my chance to live, to thrive. Our house, once filled with carnival's tune, now held silent prayers in the light of the moon. But her sacrifice was love's true form, braving every storm, breaking every norm. As I stand today with words so few, to honor the love so profound and so true, the weight of her choices, the depth of her care, leaves me in awe beyond compare. In the echoing beats of the soca drum and the taste of doubles where memories come, I'm reminded of the gift so grand, the love of my grandmother, guiding hand in hand. Time may pass, but in my heart you'll see echoes of Trinidad, its undying spree. Through every challenge, every tear-streaked plea, I remember the woman who crossed seas for me. Now a year since she danced to heaven's door, her spirit lives in the waves, the shore. In her memory I stand, emotions unfurled, telling our tale to the listening world. I will tell the story for all to see. In every shadow of a palm tree, the love, the sacrifice, so profound, of a Caribbean soul on unfamiliar ground. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Juliet, for sharing those with us. Thank you. And I didn't know September was Sickle Cell Month. So like you said, serendipity everywhere when poetry is involved. I truly believe that. Now, our last reader tonight was our first arrivee to the residency, Casey Tromer. And we had so much to talk about, from artists to being the moms of boys to being teachers. It was just like ding, 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 ding. And I love when that happens. So I got a little special love for you, Casey, because you just started off this whole festival in just the best possible note. So thank you, and thank you for being here. Casey Tromer is the author of We Call Them Beautiful, Diode Editions 2019, and The Hasp Tongue, DGP 2014, and is the founder of the online audio project Queensbound. Since 2018, she has collaborated with Grammy Award-winning composer Herschel Garfin on a song cycle based on poems from her first collection. From 2020 to 2023, she curated and ran the Red Door series, a reading and meditation series at St. Mark's Episcopal Church. She has been poet in residence on Governor's Island since 2021, first the Lower Manhattan Cultural Council's COVID-19 response residency program. Ooh, that was a long one. Then through Works on Water, and now through NYU Gallatin Web Lab. She lives in Jackson Heights, Queens, New York, with her son. Please help me welcome Casey Tromer.
Hi everyone. Hi. Caridad, I had the most wonderful time, and I'm also just having a really wonderful time tonight hearing everybody. I'm not familiar with any of the poets here, and now I'm so pleased. I'm really honored to be reading with all of you. I loved your poems. And I loved Betsy. So I wanted to say thanks for having me there, and thanks to the hotel and to Caridad for curating so beautifully, and for giving me a chance. And oh yeah, collaborative ish. That's ish it. Thank you for hosting tonight. Yeah, I'd never been to Miami before, and this gave me a reason to go, an excuse to go, and I absolutely fell in love with your super beautiful city. I knew it was an art city, but I didn't know how wonderful it was going to be. And everybody that I ran into there or talked to in the hotel was like, it's low season, and of course it was like awfully and grindingly humid, but for me as a New Yorker or someone who lives in New York, to be in such a beautiful place with so few other humans and to enjoy so much sky and such gorgeous sunsets was so delightful. Aside from the fact that it is hugely generous of the Betsy to offer this space. I'm a single parent, so whenever I go on vacation, I go with my son, and that is if you're a parent, even if you're a single parent or you have a partner, doesn't matter. You know that vacationing with your children is something other than relaxing in a hotel and swimming downstairs and then swimming upstairs and eating beautiful food and creating your own schedule. So thank you, is what I'm trying to say. I'm going to be reading poems from my current manuscript, which is called Paragons. And most of the poems actually speak to this question of othering. The first poem I'm going to read was inspired by a series of photographs by the artist Betsy Kenyon that I first encountered when she and I were both on Governor's Island during that very long COVID-19 response residency program in January 2021. So very peak COVID. It was just the residents there and then the people who worked on the island. And so we kind of had this snow-covered island to ourselves and huge studio space in which to work. And over the time that I was there, Betsy was working on, among other things, a project that turned into a monograph called Slumber, in which she would give friends or acquaintances a pinhole camera to put in their room to record them over the course of their night sleeping. So it was a pandemic project. All of these beautiful images emerged, and I was slowly writing the poem, and she ended up including the poem in the monograph, which I'll put in the chat. I'll start with that poem. This collection is all about works of art by female identifying artists. So it looks at works of art that I haven't been able to shake for whatever reason. And these are ekphrastic poems in the sense that they describe works of art, but they're more interested in mapping on my own personal history and thinking about why this particular piece of artwork stayed with me. And Caridad, when we were talking in our wonderful conversation, I absolutely adored meeting her and her partner, Elizabeth. Caridad has a really fantastic Ana Mendieta poem in her manuscript, or in her book, sorry. So please have a look at it, it's great. And I'm working on my own Ana Mendieta, but I don't know why I should bother at this point because I thought hers was so good. So anyhow, that's a lot of prelude. It's kind of easy for me to track a sense of otherness, I think, an awareness of otherness in these poems because they're poems about women and bodies and rage and the patriarchy and why always with the patriarchy. So I'm going to read, I think, 7 poems or so with visuals related to sleep. So I'm going to share my screen and I'll try to wake you up a little at the end. So I'm going to share my screen. Thank you for being here. So can someone let me know in the chat if it's visible?
It is visible.
Okay, awesome, thank you. Okay, so this poem is called Through the Pinhole Watching, and I'm just going to give you a couple of the images from it. After Betsy Kenyon's Slumber series, a back is turned to us. The room is blue and bare. The back, too, bare as a blank page hovering in the developer. In each of these rooms, time is the only constant, The bodies scumble the sheets, trying to find peace in sleep. Look at them, cocooning, enveloped in a gauze of their own making. They try to settle in the darkness as a little light leaves and a little light comes. Even the deepest colors are washed in light. So sorry. Opening, closing around them, finding its way to the other side of morning and over their sleeping heads. Time watches them stutter, slow move, stumble. Who is moving there? Who is still? It lies down with them and offers itself, white as a blank page, flat as the dead of night. The pinhole allows in the leaked light, letting all the traces touch it. It invites us to take in the whole of it, not greedy, but encompassing. Here is the great stillness of witness, all the hours we slept through and thought nothing of. What beauty we try to make without trying. In every gesture, our whole story. So that's from Slumber, and then I'm going to read a few other poems. Second. From the series, from the next book. So the next poem is going to be a little bit related to my time on Governor's Island too. The Governor's Island, for those who don't know it, is an island off the coast of the tip of Manhattan. And it was a lot of the buildings there were left to stand alone for years without any, just left to just slide into disrepair. So a lot of the buildings looked like had plants growing inside them, had paint flaking and asbestos and all kinds of craziness. And I kept thinking of the artist Francesca Woodman, if any of you know her work, and I kept expecting to see her. So I wrote this thinking about her. Yeah, Francesca Woodman, 1958 to 1981. All around the island, I feel her ghost and wonder at what more she would have made. Oh, pardon me, I should say I didn't give this. She actually committed suicide, for those who don't know her story. So I'll start again. Francesca Woodman, 1958 to 1981. All around the island, I feel her ghost and wonder at what more she would have made. There's flaking lead paint, vines, trees growing inside buildings and under the asbestos. There is a girl, only 22, half shadow, one arm crisp, still in the frame, getting herself on paper. Alone in the house, I expect Francesca every time I turn a corner, expect her eyes soulful and sullen, half caught, half deserting, mooning up at me. Adjust the aperture, let it all in. In the summer, there's a suicide in my family, not the first. That decision to exit so heavy on everyone left behind. Some ghosts weigh a ton, heave themselves onto your back, never leave. Others whisper you into the next day. Francesca, I never knew you. Come close, come back. Let all of you be seen. And the other artist I've written about a good bit about is Lee Bonteque, who I love. She came up and was one of the only women who was kind of accepted as an important sculptor in the mid 60s. And she made these incredible kind of something between sculpture and painting, these shaped pieces that had voids in them. And she lived in the East Village, and she would go and salvage the discarded canvas from behind the laundromat that she lived above, and she would weld wire frame or steel frames for her pieces and then attach the canvas. And they had this very rugged quality, perhaps a little bit macho, but she got the people who loved her got attached to the idea that she made these kinds of pieces. And then at some point she wanted to expand what she was doing, and she started making pieces like this. When she did that, she was panned by the critics and made to feel that she should go back to what she was doing. And so instead of being destroyed by that, she just packed up her things and moved to rural Pennsylvania and kept making. So I wrote this poem thinking about the beautiful audacity of that and of defining yourself. And this is a poem that's based on some language from a review of her work. Plastic fish and grinning saw blades, for Lee Montague. If they fuck with you, decamp. Take your vacuum formed plastic fish, their translucent gills and floating light, pack them with care. Carry them off to Pennsylvania and follow them. Leave the critics behind. Fuck them if they can't know a flower matters. Fuck them if they call it kitsch just because they can't stop thinking of the plastic trees on their grandmother's lobby on Park Avenue. Fuck them if they expected something raw but were instead offered something delicate, precise. If they wanted more of the same, wanted metal and nightscape and rough edges, salvaged canvas and barbed wire nips, the sinister and the void. You gave them translucence, the clarity that made it possible, a different truth. Fuck them if they can't see you are the maker. You keep making predatory fish with prey inside, bombs triggered by airplanes, the beautiful, the menace in it, how these alternate, how these are sometimes one and the same, flickering under the underbelly, soft and dragging, scraping the bottom while still holding the whole story up. There's both someone outside my window with a weed whacker and someone collecting garbage. So I feel like I've really brought New York into this reading with me. I hope you enjoy those sounds. The next poem I'm going to read is a poem that I wrote about a time in Georgia, about the artist Kara Walker, who's another amazing artist whose work I think about very, very often. And it's called Scene from the New South. At dusk in the vacant lot next to the Georgia Theater, Walker's cuts come alive in Athens, her blades shearing their silhouettes away to reveal who was held there all along. From the sky, she sliced away black figures, readable as children, terror jutting from the blunt angles of their shoulders, cutting through a heat so wet the air itself was a body. That damp couldn't blur the black-white divide. The outlines of American history kept cropping up, halving the night on its edge. You can hear the paper touch the floor of her studio and look up to see 3 black boys on bikes, turning to face the white cops who raced up behind them, one saying, "What are you doing out here, boy?" The last word dropped like an anchor. The orange-red rim of the sun flared before it crawled away west, and night's wet ink flowed in. Inside the wire fence, the lot held bodies, stock characters. They owned, pursued, their overseers pursuing. The question, how dare they, feeding them, red burning through their white faces. And then I have 2 more. Another person whose work I really loved and have thought about a good deal is Mrinalini, I think I'm pronouncing her first name right, Mukherjee, whose work I saw at Met Breuer. And these are these enormous, amazing woven pieces. It's really hard to get a sense of the scale and the image, but it gives you a sense of what the piece is like. And then in the book, I've been trying to shape poems, and I don't know if you can see me since I'm sharing the screen, but I tried to shape, I tried to shape the poems to match the shape of this image in this case. I entered a room full of these pieces, and it was just stunning. Like it felt like I was in a room full of goddesses. It was really incredible. So if you ever have a chance to see her work, I would encourage you to do so. So this poem's called The Blue Dress, after Mukherjee's Yakshi, 1984, dyed hemp. Hung from a chain, hung from the ceiling, the blue dress which I wore, silk, bias cut. The blue dress which I wore, silk, a shirt dress. The blue dress which I wore, cotton, fitted and flared. The blue dress which I wore, woven, hemp. The blue dress which wore me, folding in on itself. The blue dress which wore me, my offering exposed, the hollow of me revealed, as if I were only made of what I had to offer. Tucking in below the waist, the heaviness of the folds drink gravity down. You can see clean through the center oval to whatever is on the other side, a gallery wall, whoever's passing, whoever comes. I expect so little. And below a yoni knit and then turned out, inverted, each turning another try. The blue dress which I wore, the blue dress which wore me. I unchain her, her weight pulling my shoulders down as I heave to the floor the heap of her holding, tight knits of wanting, needing, never getting. The blue weight of her, I release. And then I've got one last poem, which is, I want to thank the Betsy for this poem because when I was there, I also was just enjoying having time. I wrote 2 poems and then I organized my poems, and I found that I have got like a third of another collection, and I just tried to put those poems together, and I would never have taken the time to do that. I just would have slowly kept dumping poems into files without paying attention to the fact that they were accumulating into something. So thank you for that. This poem's called Agency. It's not a safe for work or small children poem, but thank you for helping me find it, which I found it and I forgot I wrote it. So thank you for helping me recover it. I wrote this poem thinking about how much I hate how many stories hinge on the need for the narrative to contain a dead girl. I'm just so tired of the dead girl stories. Just feels like it's the premise of so many TV shows. There has to be a body, it has to be a girl. So agency. Give me a girl with a mouth and a story, a live ticking body and a heat for telling. Not the corpses men conflate with beauty, not the dead girls whose story is someone else's to tell. Give me a girl, a live girl, a mess, one with a mouth for talking. One who doesn't know what she says, but knows it has to be said. One who knows exactly what she's saying, if not what will ripple out of it. One whose mouth owns her, eats her, spits her clean. Give me a girl with a gift for burning, one a light, who holds herself to the match, who doesn't want to die, who wants life as much as fire wants oxygen, who doesn't want someone else to do the telling. Give me a real live girl, better than neon, better than pasties and siren song, better than calling all the boys to the yard. Give me a girl who wants for nothing because she turns and turns to herself to find more always. Give me a real girl, a live wire, a firecracker, a ball buster, a fire starter, a hoot, a dame, a doll, a howl, a howler, a loud mouth, a potty mouth, a foul mouth, a bitch, a broad, a truth teller, a naysayer, a ne'er-do-well, a churlish curl, a petulant twat, a cunt. Give me a girl, live, unscared, undead, whose mouth is alive with her own story, who connects all the dots and comes screaming out of whatever void they've hurled her into, comes screaming out to blow it all open. Thanks so much, everyone.
Wow, thank you, Casey, so much. I loved that one. I think I've been called a few of those myself. Once or twice. Now, to close us out, it's my great pleasure to introduce the Poetry Ambassador of Miami-Dade County, a talented poet and my friend, Nicole Tallman.
Thank you so much, Caridad, and thank you to the Betsy for hosting this beautiful literary salon. I love literary salons so much. And we have such a beautiful literary community here in Miami-Dade County, and it's an honor to welcome all of the poets who were able to spend time with the Betsy. It's really a gift to be able to spend time in the writer's room. It's a tradition. I don't know how many of you had time to go and look through the book of all the people who stayed before, but it's thousands of writers. So just sitting at that desk in that space is just such an honor. You know, when one of the members of our community is going through a hard time and can't be with us, I feel like we should hold space for that person. And I've been thinking a lot about Catherine. You know, it was great to hear Jen's poems. So Jen, I'm glad you were able to share that residency. But I want to close with one of with one of Catherine's poems, because I feel like she's such an important part of our community. Swim is a valuable resource that we have here. It unites so many people. And I think we have some of the editors for South Florida Poetry Journal here as attendees. I love South Florida Poetry Journal. Shout out to, I think, Lenny and Michael, and I thought I saw Judy. And one of my favorite issues of South Florida Poetry Journal happens to be edited by this person. I don't know if you've heard of her before, but her name is Caridad Moro-Gronlier. And it was in May of 2020. And I must say, she has discriminating taste. This issue, if you haven't seen it, you have to check it out. And it just so happens that Catherine has this poem. And I'm going to try not to tear up when I read it, because reading it, knowing what has just happened to her and her beautiful son, makes it a little sadder, but it's such a beautiful poem. It's called Ordinary Offering. And thank you again to Deb, the Betsy, and also to our friend Jean here, everyone who's been part of this beautiful literary salon. And this is for you, Catherine. Ordinary Offering. It's the most beautiful thing we do, she said, which meant carrying a spirit within our bodies, which could also mean being possessed by another. When pregnant with my daughter, I craved chocolate and sex. With one son, it was salted meats and conversation. With the other son, milkshakes and classical music. Each time their spirit left me like a fierce wind, blowing the sail of my body inside and out. For weeks after each birth, I rubbed my empty torso like an unemployed crystal ball whose answers were spent. Since then, scientists have found a newborn's cells inside her mother, any mother's cells inside her baby. Their fear is still my fear, their heartache and their joy, mine too. I used to see quickening toddlers on leashes, one parent steering the curious humans away from the street. Every spring, the wild peacocks tote a string of newborn chicks behind them. Furry and dazed, they follow their mothers like soldiers across the cut-through street, from meal to meal. Adolescent, they look like every other peacock. Their initial wobble grown to a tall strut. Their full feathered fans open into a many-eyed sculpture, an ordinary offering to any god. Thank you.
Thank you so much for reading that, Nicole. Thank you. Thank you all so much for being here tonight. It's been my great honor and pleasure to listen to you all and to know I had a tiny part in providing you some space and hospitality and room to breathe. I thank you all for being here and for listening to our amazing poets, and please be sure to check them out. Each one of them, the information went up on the chat. Go ahead and save that really quickly. And thank you again to the Betsy Hotel, to Calabra Artiv. I'm going to get it right. And thank you again all for being here. Have a wonderful night.